Alright, here we are again. And so far what I've managed to do, these are the wing sections. This one's straight from the factory, this top wing here, and this one I've worked a little on. I knocked off one of those ejector pin. It's got to be filed and maybe filled and really gotten looking good. This one's still here. I haven't managed to get out the putty and get that ready to go yet. But what I have done, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get you guys to see this, is along this leading edge, I've knocked it down. Just took some sanding sticks. I've got the FlexiFile ones here in medium, fine, and very fine, and I just went over, and you can't really see it on camera, but when you feel it, it feels a lot better. The ribs are still there. They're very visible, very still relevant, but it doesn't. These feel like little lines just poking up on the plastic, and this more feels like a solid piece of plastic that has some internal ribbing. So I'm going to continue on with that. Like I said, all I'm doing here is just taking a medium file first just to hog off a little bit of extra material, and we're going to do it real light. Don't want to knock this all the way back and end up ruining our kit here, but just a few passes and it's already knocked down quite a bit, and you can see the lighter gray plastic starting to show up. Do the other side. Try to be as consistent as you can in feel and in your motions so that both sides get the same treatment and it looks uniform all the way across. And don't forget the middle here. And I'm pretty happy with that amount of material being removed with the medium. You don't want to go too far on the medium file, because that can really get rid of some material fast. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to, this is the fine, and knock that back, and knock this other side back. And the middle. And I'm just going off of feel. I mean, that's really all I'm doing here, is going by feel, somewhat with how it looks. You want to make sure that you're keeping the ribs there, keeping it consistent all the way across, consistent feel. This leading edge is a little high. Knock that back a little bit. But then with the very fine, I'm just going over just to kind of polish it a little. And then to actually polish it, we've got our FlexiFile here with the black side to remove scratches, the white side to polish. And finally the gray side to get us back to that real shiny finish, just like it came from the box. You can be pretty rough with this one to really polish in and get all that out of there. And we'll just make sure that's cleaned off. And like I said, this to me feels more in scale. I don't know, if it's more accurate necessarily, but to me it feels more like a piece of plastic, and we've got some stressed parts in between here, in between internal ribs. I'm not going to worry so much with the bottom. You're really never going to see it, and you see more of the ribbing from the bottom anyway. But to me, this just feels more in scale, and it'll still do what we want it to do. It'll still hold in some weathering, some washes and stuff to get the detail that we want to get out of it. But I think it looks and feels a lot more like a scale aircraft. This small, especially the top ones. The mid ones here I didn't knock back quite as far, but I don't know. It's real fast if you want to do it. If you don't and just want to paint it out of the box, then like I said, the ribs they're very visible, very there, and it's no problem. But I just knocked mine back because I thought it would look a little better. So we'll see how it goes. And here we are, guys. So it may come as no surprise to you after all the other issues that we've had so far with this kit, with needing to rescribe the panel lines and the rivets and all that, that the fit is not good. Not good at all. We've got some big issues here. You won't see this because this is where the machine gun, well, yeah, I don't think you'll see this because this is where the machine guns will be. The fit around here, there's a bit of a seam here that we're going to have to fill and sand down. The bottom has a big lip around here, and around the back it fits okay. So we're gonna glue this guy up, and then we'll have to go in with the, when that's dry, we'll have to go in and fill and get to work on it. So yeah, so we got our Tamiya extra thin. So just pop that guy open. And so we're going to hold them together and then just have the capillary action pull this glue in to where it needs to be. I have to pinch some parts of this together. So I'm going to get a little clamp here and just hold him together that way, not that tight, just finger tight if we can get it. And just about like that. And then we're going to go around to the rest of it. Try and get all of it to stay together as nicely as we can. It's kind of turning out to be a dog of a kit, but we're going to do our best. We're going to see if we can't make something special out of this guy. So I'm going to hold this together here. Make sure the top is still good. Looks as good as we're gonna get it, I think, here. So we're gonna let that sit just like that. Maybe grab an additional clamp. And see if we can't get that bit to stay together there. So yeah, something like that. Gonna have to let that sit and dry for a while. When it is dry, see if I can get it to stand on its own here. When it does dry, it looks like we'll have, I'm gonna put a little bit more glue just along that line there, just to make sure that gets sealed up. So it looks like, we're gonna take our basic putty from Tamiya, we're gonna have to go along that line there for sure. I'm gonna test fit the machine guns, see if there's anything that's here. It definitely looks like this here right in front of the cockpit is going to be an issue. The underside, I'll fill and sand it down and everything, but we're not going to stress too much about that just now. While we're on the topic of filling, we've got this ejector pin here that is definitely an issue, and it's also in the middle of one of the ribs. So we're going to have to kind of spoof that rib and clean that up and see what we can do with that. So I'm going to fill it first, grab a toothpick or two here, just because we're probably gonna need it. And grab a little bit of putty. That's probably way too much. It's getting messy already. And then on here, I'm just gonna drop a little of that in, not all of it. I'll put this away. And then try and clean this up. So what we're gonna have to do here is a lot of fine sanding work and get that back into the shape that we want it. But I think we've got the height that we need on this layer of putty. So we're gonna let that dry. This one over here was raised and I shaved it off with a blade. It looks okay. I'm gonna have to probably go in with a needle file and clean that up more, and then we'll polish it up. I may add a little putty. There's some areas around where it popped out that are sunken in, so we'll add a little bit to that just to fill that bit in. And then, like I said, we'll let that dry and we'll come back. Alright guys, here we are back again with the Academy 172 Sopwith Camel. So since last time we talked about we were going to have to, after gluing this together, after the glue dried, we were going to need a lot of filler to get this guy back in shape and to fill in some of these ejector pin marks there. So this has been curing for a couple hours now, and I've already sanded down the bottom here to get it nice and flat. Now it's not perfect. There's still a little bit of maybe a hump in the middle, but for our purposes and for being the very bottom of the plane, you're barely going to notice it, and with some paint it really won't be too bad. You'll notice here I did call out that maybe we didn't have to fill in this as much. I was wrong. I test fit with the machine guns, and in fact you do see this in between the machine gun piece fits in here, and then it's two machine guns sticking out with that very big gap in that, very visible. So I didn't do anything inside the cockpit. I'm pretty disappointed with the cockpit in general, and I'm hoping that maybe with the way the Camel is set up, that the wing, you really can't hardly see the cockpit at all. So I'm not overly concerned. We'll get some paint in there and we'll fake it, but we're not going to try to hyper detail something. We didn't get any kind of photo etch or anything to do anything inside of it anyway. So there was a gap here, a gap there, filler all along this seam line. We put some back there and went ahead and cleaned it up, and it looks real good. This will look good once it's got primer and paint on it and everything. It'll look much more flat and smooth. So these guys, there were ejector pin marks. This is the top of the plane. So here on the underside, you might see it, you may not, but they were all four very deep ejector pin marks sunk into there. So I went ahead and put filler in each of those, made a little bit of a mess of it over here. Just got too much on my toothpick and it went everywhere. So we'll sand all that down and get it cleaned up. And then there was the raised ejector pin over here that we put a little bit of filler in to kind of smooth that one out, and then a sunken one in here that we're going to have to do our best to recreate this rib here. So it's probably good that we tried to sand down all of these ribs to make them a little bit more in scale, because we're going to end up, having a hard time recreating that section of that rib there out of filler, but we're going to do our best. It might take another application after we sand down this one. So for this, all I've been doing is I've been starting out with a fine flex pad and pick apart. Let's go ahead and try and do this this gun bay here, just because it's small and you can see what I'm on about. So just trying to keep it flat using the sponginess of the pad to work in our favor so that we can just work it around nice and flat and try and get, you know, make sure that these edges stay good, that edge stays nice and true. And we're looking for, this doesn't have to be amazing, because it's going to be a small part in between the machine guns. It's likely just going to be painted the same olive green as the rest. Maybe we'll pull it out in metal, but it doesn't have to be perfect because we've got a lot of stuff that's covering around it. We just need to remove the gap. So what I've got here, this is a fine needle file, and I'm just going to go over some of the spots that are a little extra raised, and that lets me get here into these corners a little better than the pad can get in. I don't have any of the skinny sticks or anything that those products are available. I just don't have them. So I'm going to use what we've got from previous modeling projects, and we'll use the fancy new products whenever we get a chance to buy them. So that's looking pretty good. We're pretty nice and flat in there. And you could, at this point, I mean, you could probably just leave this, but you can, if you can fit. I don't think mine's gonna fit, but you can go in here, give it a polish, just to try and smooth everything out even more. Remove the scratches, going with the white side to polish. And the gray side for a final squeaky clean. And let's see how we're doing here. And we've got a little bit of raised areas. Like I said, I think for the most part, especially this stuff, if you can see what I'm doing here, if you can see here and here, you know, these sections aren't great, but they're also going to be covered by the barrel of the machine gun. So hopefully that leaves us with the ability to not have to worry too much about that section. And this front part is going to get covered by the cowling that's going to come over the front. So that looks good enough for now. With paint and everything else, we'll see how that comes out. Now here, you know, we did have to put filler over here, which is going to interfere. We had the panel line that we rescribed, and you know, we gotta do what we gotta do. We filled that in a little bit, so we might have to go back over it briefly. For this one, you can see I'm just using the needle file at first here, just because I got it in my hand and I've got pretty good control with it. And just rolling the fuselage to try and maintain that rounded area. And then this is an extra fine. I'm just gonna use the sponginess and roll it back and forth to make sure we don't flatten out an area that's supposed to be round. And just polish that up real nice. So I think we've got that looking alright. I'm gonna clean up down in here just so that we don't end up with anything that interferes with plugging that machine gun piece in. So just keep this all nice and clean. And I'm just using my fingernail to feel over it, and I don't feel any raised area. So I'm probably going to leave that about like it is, and then we'll come back in and do that rescribing work after the fact. So for this big one all along here, we're going to have to try to keep this round, and to do that I'm going to brace myself here on the workbench, and again using the sponginess of our stick here to be able to roll it back and forth and press into it so that it conforms to that round and we aren't gonna lose it. So pretty quickly here we should start seeing the seam line, which we do. And this first pass here is gonna tell us a story. It's gonna tell us where the high points are and where the low points are that we need to be mindful of so that we don't file away too much on the wrong side. So we've definitely got a lot of cleaning to do over here, but for the actual center seam itself, looks like we're high on this side and a little low down here. So we'll keep working, focusing a little bit more on the high side. Try to knock it down. And what we don't want to do, there's these slats here that are molded in, and we don't want to soften that rib line too much, but we may have a bit too much filler that got onto it. So we may have to come back in and fix that, or we actually may just have to leave it. I'm not sure if we can get that back, but we're gonna try to keep it. And what we can do is we can take the file and do a little bit more detailed work with it to try and stay inside the lines, as it were, you know, so that we don't overshoot that raised area and get rid of it. So a little bit like that, brush away the excess, and let's focus here on this back cowling. If we can get this to look right, then we can hopefully do alright with the back part of the plane, but I'll get this right behind the pilot area to look nice. So we've got a little bit of a sink in here, so we may have to come back in with an extra layer of filler to get this all into how we want it. But for now, we'll just sand and see what we can get out of this guy. And I'll keep on with that, and I'll catch you guys back here in just a little bit. Okay, guys. Well, you can probably see here we're making pretty good progress with the assembly. We've got the machine guns are in, the bottom wing is in, and the tail. Now the tail fit absolutely awfully, just atrocious. I ended up cutting off the tab that connects the two. I'll show you in the instructions here. If you can see here with the tail assembly, there's a little nub that's supposed to go through the horizontal piece and then into a corresponding hole in the fuselage, and it was all offset and cockeyed and just terrible. So I ended up cutting off that nub, and after 3 tries with PVA glue, I ended up just super gluing it together with the best and most square fit that I could manage on my own. And you know, I'm not super happy with the results. I don't know if you can make out whether or not that's terribly square, but you know, it's what we're gonna have to have for the kit, being what it was, for as cheap as it was and as old and the bad fit. So for the bottom here, the bottom wing, the fit wasn't great either, and there was some gapping going on. But you can probably see here, if you see the white, what that actually is microcrystal clear. You know, trying to get in there with the regular putty and then sanding it all out in those little areas is virtually, I'm going to do more damage to this kit than I'm going to fix anything. So I don't know if you can see right there along where the wing connects to the fuselage is all microcrystal clear. So I left a little hole right here so I can show you guys what it is that I'm talking about. And I'll just grab the crystal clear. There should be some in the cap. Grab a toothpick. And I'm just gonna get a dollop like that and just wedge it in there and make a big old mess of it. So just plop it in there just like that, easy as can be. And then next thing I'm going to do is take a clean cotton swab. I'm going to get a little bit of water on it. And then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to wash off anything that wasn't that hole. And just wipe it clear, dry off around it a little bit. And there you go. That little hole is now full. That'll dry absolutely crystal clear, but the hole itself will be filled. And then when we undercoat, it'll be like it was never there. So, like I said, this is coming together. It's going all right. We've got the wing struts to go in, and then we're gonna attach our upper wing. Is probably about next. Actually, now that I say that, probably gonna go ahead and kick it over to the spray booth and undercoat at this point. Maybe attach the struts, and then we'll paint this separately probably. It'll just be easier to get to everything with the airbrush, and we'll do it like that. So I'll see you guys next time.